Spending over 10K a day on paid ads or 300K per month is probably one of the hardest things you can do. I'm going to run you through the 4 problems you run into and exactly how you solve them. And you can see here that it says here 241,000 in pounds. That's over $328,000, about $10,500 per day. Just to make a quick introduction to myself. Hi, my name's Adam. I've generated over $15 million in revenue for businesses across 12 industries. I'm currently 24, and here's an image of me dropping out when I was actually 21, but I started when I was 20. Again, I've worked in all types of industries: e-com, apps, local service, high ticket, everything under the sun. So I've got a really good understanding of these problems. Again, if you want to see all my proof, here are a bunch of screenshots. I'm not going to get too much into detail, but you can stop and see. Here's a picture of me with some pretty big famous celebrities. Here's some testimonials and so forth. As the videos will go on, this proof wall is going to get a bit bigger. Now let's run to the 4 problems. Number 1, your CPA is going to skyrocket. Your ROAS is going to absolutely go to the floor. Funnily enough, your ads will overspend, and I'll explain what that means a little bit later on, and you're going to have major compliance issues. Right, let's go to the number 1 thing. Your CPAs are going to skyrocket, right? And let me show you, right? So I've got a few screenshots. I built a full diagram, by the way, so we've got quite a few things to go through. So number 1, let's look at an ad account where we're sub $1,000 a day, right? You can see here, I think this person spent about $2,000, so it's probably doing about $100, let's say £100, $100 a day, right? You can see CPAs around £8.72, 21,000 generated in purchase conversion, around 8.17 ROAS, right? Now, I know people are going to say that we need attribution, like high ROAS and so forth. Let's just use this for the simplicity, right? Let's even make the assumption he makes a 5 times ROAS. You can assume he's profitable. Now, let me show you an ad account where it's above, say, $2,000 to $10,000 a day. Now, keep in mind, I have to obviously rub these out because it reveals who the client is. This person here, we've spent $6,000 a day, and his cost per purchase skyrockets, and you can see his ROAS is terrible. Now, this is what I mean. When you're scaling spend, if you don't do it properly, you're going to go from numbers like this, which you probably love, to numbers like this. Now, what's the reason for this? Like, why is this happening? Now, I built quite a simple diagram, so we'll quickly run through it. Essentially, what's happening, right, and what's causing these CPAs to skyrocket and just increase like quite dramatically is the CTR, so your click-through rate, is just dropping, right? Your CPMs are going to skyrocket, and because of that, your CPC is going to skyrocket. Now, why is your click-through rate going to go down? Essentially, I don't know if you've seen this triangle before. It's basically your levels of awareness of the customers you're trying to go for. When you're starting out, usually you're probably going to go for these type of customers, right? People who already know what they want, they already want to buy. As you try to scale spend, what's going to happen is you're going to run out of these people, and you're going to keep hitting that cold audience. Now, I don't want to make this video about cold audiences. I want to give you a full action plan, so we'll run through a bit more, but just hold on with me. I'll run you through it. Right, let's assume you've got a $5 CPM. So $5 CPM meaning that it costs you $5 to reach 1,000 people, just reaching it. If you spend $10 a day, that's 2,000 people. If you spend $100 a day, that's 20,000 people. $1,000 a day is 200,000, and $10,000 a day is 2 million people. So in 30 days, you're going to reach 60 million people, right? So think about that. That's the size of a state. That's actually the size of the UK, is about 60, 70 million people. So in 30 days, you run through all of them. Realistically, you're probably not going to do it. You've got frequency, which I'm not going to talk about here, but essentially, I'd say 25% you're probably going to retarget anyway. And the assumption here is that, people are seeing your ad at least once. Now, I'm going to walk you through like what type of ads work at what scale, right? Because essentially, when you're spending that level, like think about it, you want to scale to even, like, say 10 million people a month. Like you want 10 million people to see your ad, ideally, depending on your market. So you're probably going to hit not just people who are already in the pain point, but up the funnel here, people who are unaware, problem unaware and stuff. So let me show you examples. So here's an ad that I ran. This is probably one of my clients a few years ago, probably 2022, 2023 we're talking. It's just literally a bale. These guys are vintage wholesalers, right? Now, you can see here why, if you want a bale, and you can say here, March 15, our bales will be available. You can tell if you're in the market for a bale, if you're a vintage like reseller and you're looking for a good price, it's probably going to convert, right? Now, that's a very small amount of people. But if I showed you these metrics, now I pulled the screenshot. I probably should have pulled another one, but we spent 150 quid and we made 43 ROAS on that. So I don't know, like $4,000, right? Cost per purchase of £26. Now, obviously that's because AOV is high, so that's why it's quite easy. But in reality, if I try to scale that ad, it's not going to work, because imagine as you're scaling up to different types of people, different types of ICPs, they're not going to understand this. So most of you are running ads like this, right? You're running your ads that people kind of already understand. You already have an assumption. When you're running to people who are most aware, you have an assumption that they already know what they want. They're already quite educated customers, so already ready to buy. You're just literally putting the ad in front of them. That's why these like really bad ads will work, but at scale they won't. But let's see what ads would work, right? So what I did was I went onto Meta Ads library, and then I was like, right, let me find an ad. And here's an ad from Huel. This would scale all the way up to problem aware. And I'll tell you why. Number one, 40 grams of protein. If you're a person, a customer looking for just a solution, it doesn't have to be a drink, it doesn't have to be anything, just a solution, and you want to get your protein in, bang, you found it. You didn't have to know about Huel. You didn't have to know about even like whey protein drinks and so forth. You could have just been a person who's looking to get more protein in, and that will scale all the way to you. Now, if you notice, his offer is $179 a meal. It's very, very clear what you're trying to do. You've got the value stack on the side, but the main thing is $179. You can see here. Now, what people are going to subconsciously do is compare that. Well, it cost me probably like £5 for like a chicken breast, right? They will basically kind of do it in their heads and think, it's actually a pretty good offer essentially. So as you scale your creative or you scale who you're trying to go to, you've got to scale your offer and think, how would I convince these people who are just problem aware, who know they've got a problem? How could I then convince them to come, not just try my thing, but buy my thing and convince them? Now, I think the hardest one to do is unaware. So I robbed one of Hormozi's ads I found. I've just got the picture, but it's a video. Now, it's quite difficult because when you're hitting an unaware audience, you're saying that these people don't even realize they have a problem. So your ad has to be really angled very differently. He says here, 3 of the biggest problems facing gyms. He's now targeting his ICP. He knows he's going for gym owners, right? Or probably people within the PT space and so forth. And he's made it very clear. So even if you may not realize, you could be anyone. You could just be a gym owner and you're probably going to watch this ad. That's what it is to scale to an unaware audience. Now, if I was to just zoom out for a second and we look at like these 3, you can see like very clearly, this is a most aware ad and this is like a scalable, like cold traffic ad. Now, I'm not saying these are the ads that did the best. I've just robbed these, right? But what I'm trying to do is show you here are the type of ads you need to make when you're trying to scale, especially when you're at that like bigger point, right? Now, let's just do some quick math here, right? So just so you understand what's actually happening. Imagine you reach 1,000 people and your click-through rate is 2%. That means it's 20 people. I'm assuming link click-through rate here as well. Out of that, 10% of those 20 people are going to convert, which is 2 people. Makes complete sense. Right, so that's the absolute. Let's look at the actual scenarios here. When you've got your original, you're winning, let's say your ads that's doing $50 a day, right? CPM is $5, the CTR is 2%, so that means 2% of people are clicking on, costs you 25 cents, and 10% conversion rate means it costs you, cost per purchase is $2.50. Now obviously it's going to be different. I've just done some quick maths here. Now, if your CPM rises, and the reason your CPM would rise is because you're scaling to a colder audience that probably don't want to see your ads anyway. So if your ads are bad and they don't want to see it because they're colder, Meta doesn't want to show them. So it's going to drive the bid up. And you're also bidding against the big competitors now, not the smaller ones. So let's say your CPM's doubled, right? 2x. But your CTR is the same. Your CPC, I think your CPC would actually be different. I've done this one wrong here. But let's just ignore this for now. But your conversion rate's the same. Your cost per purchase would be $5. So I fixed the numbers here. Now let's have a look, right? Now let's imagine that your CTR is dropping. Remember, as you're scaling to a colder audience, and you've got the wrong ad. So remember, let's just go back to the top, right? Let's remember, if we're trying to scale this to that, let's say your regular, your newer reseller or so forth, your CTR is going to drop, but people aren't going to click on this ad, right? So if your CTR drops, and let's say it goes from 2% to 1%, so it drops by 50%, then what happens is your cost per click goes to 0.5 or 50 cents. Let's assume everything is the same. Your CPP still doubles. Your cost per purchase 2x's, right? Now imagine what's happened. So these are just like, one scenarios, right? There are reasons. Sometimes your CPM could go up because of the time of year, could be Black Friday. CTR could go up because of the creative fatigue, right? When you're scaling, what's actually happening is this. Your CTR is going down and your CPM is going up. So imagine both of these in effect. You've got $10 CPM. So it's 2x the number of 2x the cost. It's 1%, so it's half your click-through rate. It's costing you $1 to get a click. So now it costs you, with a 10% conversion rate, we've assumed that to be the same. It's costing you 4x what it used to be. So that's why when you're scaling, the main problem is you're going to see your CAC just absolutely get decimated. It's going to skyrocket. And because of these core things. Now, how do we actually solve it? Like, what's our solution here? Because it's the point of the video. First thing you want to do, clearly identify your ICP and your TAM. So if we're going to go back to this one, right? To make our, where's it gone? This one here, to make it really easy as the example. Let's say we're going for starter clothing and vintage resellers, right? So that's okay. I know the starter clothing and vintage resellers. I also know that I need to know my adjacent markets as well, like who is around me. So I've got my wholesalers, who are vintage wholesalers, who buy wholesale, vintage resellers, I've got vintage sellers, I've got live stream sellers. So I've got, those are the main communities, right? You can do obviously a bit more. Then you obviously need to know TAM. Very easy, just ChatGPT it. ChatGPT can tell you a lot of AI can save you some time. If you don't have access, you can just Google it, right? It tells me, right, here are the number of people within that market, right? Now I understand who my ICP is and I understand who I'm trying to go to. So that to me makes clear sense. Next thing, what I want to know is find out their spend potential and their core pain points. And it'll all make sense, right? But step one, we're just trying to identify who we're going for. And I really understand, because once you understand your customer, you can adjust your ad and your offer to make sure it's more appealing to that person, right? So you found out who your TAM, you find out their core pain points, you know roughly what they could spend. Again, as you start, interacting with your customers more, you'll know. What I do have here as well is like, this is what we use. So if I'm trying to understand somebody, especially let's say with a client, right? If we're trying to understand, I'll ask, I think these 12, maybe 15 questions, really deep dive. So you can just rob these questions. I'll zoom in a bit more. So you can just rob these exact questions and use them for yourself. Right. So first, you've identified who are you going for and how big is that market. So now you know roughly. Step two is what you want to do is you want to make sure your product matches your ICP. And here's why. If you're trying to go for, let's say, the starter clothing vintage resellers, right? What matters to them is very different what happens to your wholesalers, your retailers, and so forth. Everybody has a different pain point. So that's why I said, right, what are the pain points here? For starter resellers, it's just making their first dollar online. They want to try it out. They don't want to be, for them, it's all about risk. How can I bring my risk down? Whereas with wholesalers, it might not be about risk, but it might be quality of product, which is technically related to risk, right? Now I understand, like, right, okay, so I'm trying to go after the vintage, starter people people just starting out. What's my offer going to be? So here's one of our other clients, right? His offer is spend $25 and double your money. So, right. So it's like basically spend $25 and make $50 back. So it's called a profit box. Who is that going to appeal to? It's going to appeal to the people who are starting out, not the wholesalers, not the retailers, because all these people already know what they do. They're not going to care. What is the point of spending $25 if you only make 50 back? For them, it's not worth the time and effort. They're looking at bigger margins. But your starter person, he wants a low barrier to entry. He just wants to know, how can he double his money? How can he quickly get that, that satisfaction in a way? When you identified your core ICP up here, then you need to make sure your product and your offer match it. So then it's really easy to scale. So if we go back to the top here, you could argue that this matches the wholesalers, which it would. But there are many ways you could angle it. If somebody is starting to get into wholesale, if somebody is already a professional wholesale, maybe they want, MOQ of like 400 units or something. It's how you start thinking about it and how you start positioning it. It's not that this ad couldn't do well. It could do great. It's just that you need to add more context here. So if I just add a headline here, if I make a video, I might be able to scale up to those people. And again, like with B2B, usually it's your most aware person. So it's more of a TAM problem. But anyway, let's go back down. So now that you understand that you've got obviously you got your TAM, your ICP, the product, the offer, what do you do next? Now all you need to do is scale. Just scale up your creatives. When I've had clients where we've had to spend 100K, 200K, 300K per month, it's all about us getting many creatives as possible. Look, with this guy, we do organic with him as well. We've done the same offer, 24 videos in the panel, like a few days, right? It's pumping out as many variations of that content. Now, if you don't know what to do, it's quite easy. I've got a bunch of stuff here. Just you go on the link and you can, just fill in a form and get it back. But I'll walk through it at the end. Anyway, here are like all the ads that you could possibly do, right? So many different. I think there's 20 here, 30 here you can copy. Now, with ads, I want to break it down to make it really simple, because you might be thinking, wait, how can I make that many ads? Like, how to pick 100? Look, with your ad, first you need to figure out offer. Basically who you're going for? What's your offer? Call to action, style. For your style, go really simple. Like, that's what I've learned. So you can even just do an ad of just you speaking to the camera, right? Go really simple and just if you just test the offer, test what's working, test do the gross economics work, does everything work out? Essentially, what you want to do is just make sure you've landed correctly. Once you've found that, okay, this ad's starting to work, and you've got your core, your ICP, your offer, your CTA, and so forth, next thing is what you want to do is style. Basically, just change as many styles. Look, all these ads are they're going to say the same thing. They have the same offer. This is probably the same hook. They're just going to be filmed differently. That's it. You're filming many variations. Once you find a winning variation, and sometimes it's as simple as like a TikTok comment. Sometimes it's a photo ad. Sometimes, like, usually your ugly ads do really well. We've also done the customer call ad, so forth. Once you find the one that works, after innovating so many times, we do something called optimization. So what does optimization mean? It basically means you found the winning ad. You know it works. Now we're going to squeeze it as much as we can. So we'll change variables. We'll change the length of the ad. We'll change the people in the ad. We'll change the background of the ad. We'll change like the editing style of the ad. We'll change every factor, but we know that ad works, right? Because once you find a winning ad, you squeeze it as much as you can. Very, very straightforward. So just a quick recap. Step 1, identify your core ICP, right? And how big the TAM is and their pain points. Step 2, make sure the product and offer match the ICP. Very straightforward. Remember, you can just use this framework. Step 3, once you know that, pump as many ads out as you can. You can also use it for organic, just do volume. If you do 100 a week, you'll be sorted. It can be a mixture of photo or video, it's up to you. Now, I'll do a bit of a side note as well, right? There are other things outside of scaling, and I was just isolated on that one point of, CPAs going up. But if you're going to scale, there are a few variables I look at. Now, keep in mind, what I will say is that I probably need to update this a little bit. Like, I wouldn't use the exact arrows, but just keep in mind, how would you scale? So if I were to grow, right? If I want to scale, there are a few things you can do. One, you can scale your use case. So maybe people come to you and they shop for clothes or shirts. Now they're going to shop for jackets, or now they're going to shop for something else. Your use case, why would they come for you? If you change your use case, you've now got a new set of reasons for people to come. You can change your offer. Now this relates, or your value proposition. Again, that relates to your ICP, so you got to know that. You got your category. I know category and use case can be quite difficult. Use case is why somebody would come. Category is you could have the same thing but use it for different pieces, right? So I might come to your store to buy clothes, but then you've got different categories of the same thing. And I'll give you an example. Well, actually, in a minute I'll show you. There's a hoodie example that shows it really well. For example, I might come to buy warm products. So you might sell warm products, and you got different categories of warm products, but the core use case is the same. I'm coming to you to buy warm products, argument's sake. Easiest thing you can do is scale national market. I've done this a lot of testing on this. If an ad works in the UK, it'll work in the US, it'll work in Canada, it'll probably work in Europe as well. You don't even have to always change the language. It just tends to work. The next thing you can do is scale the acquisition channel. So you can do cold outreach, you can do some forms of paid ads, you can do DSP ads, many other things, right? And the other two are basically your creative stuff we were talking and your ICPs you're going for. So if, for example, we go back to the top here, then here's the reason why I asked about your adjacent markets. If we start off going here and we feel like we've reached a maximum, then we might graduate up and say, right, I might go for live stream sellers or vintage sellers or retailers now for the next step. And that will open up a whole new market to me. Now, you've got to really just check how many people are in your market. If you're a wholesaler, there's only or like a retailer, there's only 6,000 people, right? Let's say the UK. So you may run out of people quite quickly. So, but if you look at your your starters, over 250,000 of them, so there's more people to sell to. When you want to scale, you might consider doing that. Of course, you've got to look at another point is your LTV, but we'll get into that a little bit later, right? These are the main variables you can use to scale, and we'll dig a bit deeper in a second. Now, side note, I spoke to the Palta, which is, if you know the Flow, the woman period tracking app, she was the head of growth there. Oh, sorry, chief growth officer, forgive me. And we had a very different opinion of things. So she said you can scale to $1 million or £1 million a month very easily on just paid. And I do agree. My caveat is that you can do that scaling across multiple countries. If you're solely focused on one country, or let's say one state, which has only got 60 or 70 million people, what I would say is that you would need to start looking for different acquisition channels. But if you're scaling across multiple countries, I definitely believe you can scale to $1 million a month, $2 million a month, purely on paid ads. Very straightforward. But again, you've got to really think about what you're doing on this side of stuff. But I just wanted to add that piece in. I was telling you first about the CPAs skyrocketing. The next thing is that your ROAS is going to tank. Now, it's based off your CPA. If your cost per acquisition goes up, of course, it's a what they call the inversely proportion. Your ROAS is going to go down. I'm going to focus mainly on the solution here, right? Number one, easy solutions. What you can do is, this is like there's the quick one and the long one. You can increase your average order value. So simple one, increase your prices. Look at your cost of goods sold, your COGS, and then look how much you can sell it. See if you can increase by $5, $10, $20, right? Those are very easy things to do. Obviously, you've got to measure your conversion rate. The next thing you can do is your upsell, downsell, cross-sell. This explains it very well. You've got your initial order. Can I upsell them into another product? Can I cross-sell them with another product, or can I downsell them into something else, like maybe a plan or something? So really straightforward. And the final thing is just monitoring your conversion rate by your funnel. As you scale and you're scaling ICPs, you should be trying to test out listicles, different landing pages, especially for the core ICP. What you should be doing week on week is checking what happens if I change the landing page journey and match it more to the ad or match it more to the ICP. And you'll see that week on week, you'll have different conversion rates, and study what's happening here. So very, very straightforward. Again, this is like one of our sheets that you should always have a master sheet anyway. If you don't have a master sheet, I don't know, book in and we'll help you make a master sheet. You should always have a master sheet of your business and everything that breaks it down. Website stats being one of them. But yeah, week on week, monitor your conversion rate by the funnel and see which funnels do the best, especially as you're scaling. And that will majorly increase your ROAS. And when I say that, look at the funnel from ad to landing page to product to purchase. Look at the full funnel. Don't just use the same ad and change the landing page. Won't make sense. It needs to be a full funnel. And if we go back to what we were talking about, there are different funnels you can build when you're scaling to an unaware audience, right? Makes complete sense. Cool. The real thing is that essentially you've got to increase your LTV, right? When you're spending 5K a day, 10K a day, think about these big companies. They're not looking at same day payback. They're not looking at the same day, okay, I spent $10, I made $20 back. They're not looking at that. They understand when you increase spend, they're willing to pay a little bit, have a longer life cycle. Now, I want to just quickly show you this diagram I made a very long time ago to kind of explain things really well. Your marketing should kind of work like this, right? You find a customer, the customer buys, right? Great. But then the product should be so good, or the experience should be so good, right, that the customer either buys again, they refer, or they do both. Now, let me show you why this is really important. Let me zoom out a little bit, right? Now, again, I know not all products, but we'll run through. Imagine somebody only buys once, right? So the CAC is $10, and they spend $40. Our profit is $30, and our revenue is $40, right? Okay, cool. And that's it. So reality, you can probably spend about, say, $30 to acquire a customer, or say 40. No, I didn't consider your COGS here, so forgive me. Now let's say somebody's a returning customer, right? So they spend once and then they say, oh, actually, let me spend again. Profit you made is $70. So your revenue is only 2x, but your profit is 2.3 because you didn't spend any more dollars to acquire them, or the dollars is basically minuscule. Make sense? Now imagine somebody they buy something, and this is what a lot of you will have. You may have a product that you can't really buy again, but it's so good they might refer somebody else. Well, in reality, they bought it and they've told their friend, but that's $80. But remember, you only paid for one. You only paid for one person. So you've made $70 in profit. Now imagine if you had this. And by the way, M1, M2, M3 just means month 1, month 2, month 3. Imagine if you had a customer and every customer who would come back would buy at least twice and they would refer at least one person. So it costs you what? It costs you $10 to get somebody. They spend on month 1 $40 and they refer somebody. So it's $80. And on month 2, they spend again $40 and that referred person also spends $40. And in theory, we could even argue, say, that referred person refers somebody else. Let's say that, for example. You've made $150 in profit compared to this, right? You 5x your profit and 4x your revenue. So imagine if you're trying to scale, your competitor is saying, well, actually, my product or my experience is so much better, I will outspend because I can spend $150 to acquire, say, a customer, and I know in 2 months I'm going to get the full payback, whereas you can only spend $30. Now, obviously, the math isn't fantastic. It's just quick math to get you to understand it. So when you're scaling your spend, your ROAS is naturally going to go up. So you've got to understand, how can I increase my LTV? And how do we do that? So you've probably seen this graph on Shopify and probably never used it, right? It's called, it's your retention graph. What this graph basically means is, as a cohort, when did they buy again? So 6% of people in January made a second purchase, 0.3% in January made another purchase. Sorry, not a second purchase, just another purchase, and so forth. So if I wanted to know in October, right, how many people bought in October, so it tells me that the people bought 4%, rebought in October. In September of that cohort of the returning customers, 6.6 bought again, 0.06 and 0.0919, right? So it's basically telling me here is the month, and here is when the person bought in the previous month as a percentage, right? And the percentage then calculated from your overall returning customers. So if you see, for example, your returning customer rate being around 28%, but it should be around 30%. 30% is really great. Like, that's good. But if you're not measuring your cohorts and understanding, well, what's actually happening to my cohorts as time is going on? Like, are they getting worse? Are they getting better? Because you can see here, like, look, 0.26% after 6 months. That means I probably got a really shit product, or I'm probably just haven't got anything for them to buy. We'll talk about that in a minute. But this is what you need to start looking at. At that level of spend, you're looking at your cohorts as a monthly basis and understanding what happens. Because if you're running these aggressive offers, does it change the weight of your buyer behavior as well? That's what you've kind of got to assess. And as you start looking at these longer cohorts, you start making better prediction models and so forth. Understanding, actually, I know when to re-engage people and so forth. So that's what you really need to do. Kind of point one is you should have a monthly returning customer rate of at least 8%. That'd be really strong. Point two is then you should assess that deeper and make sure your retention goals are consistent. Now, of course, if you only have one product and it's a one-time use product, of course your retention is going to be very bad. But if you can make that work, now it comes down to seeing what else can I offer to this core audience. And this is why, again, the first thing we talked about was ICP, right? I said to you, ICP, if you know who you're selling to, you can keep selling to them again and again. So we were talking about, again, ICPs, right? Now I want to walk you through recurring revenue and reoccurring revenue, right? So not every business will have recurring revenue, meaning that they won't have like a SaaS company or an agency. They tend to have recurring revenue. They know on a fixed schedule they're going to get like money coming in, right? E-com businesses, digital product businesses, they have reoccurring revenue. So it repeats, right? So when you're going to get your retention up and you're an e-com business, you need to think more in this tactic. There are some like subscription models in e-commerce that have recurring models, but you need to understand the difference. And if you understand the difference, you can then increase your retention. An example of reoccurring revenue is drops. A lot of these clothing brands, they do big drops, correct? So they understand they can get their returning customers to come back. They can create reoccurring revenue if they need to. So their retention cohorts may look really bad on like, say 9 months out of 12, but on the 3 months they do their drops or 4 months they do drops, the retention might be fantastic. So that's what you need to consider, right? On the days you release new product, how good is your reoccurring revenue? And remember, like, if you've got really bad retention and you don't have a subscription product, you need to be releasing new products to keep getting people into your core ICP or expanding your ICP, right? This kind of comes back to the use cases, what we were talking about. Now, when you're expanding, especially if you've got your acquisition and you understand your ICP, there's a few things like we can do, right? So if I want to increase my recurring or reoccurring revenue that we were talking about, there it is. What I would do is I'd go back to think, how can I grow on demand, right? Now, again, we talked about this. You can grow use case, your value prop, and so forth. So I've got a few screenshots of people who have done it really well. So let me run you through an example, right? So like, you can see here Stanley, right? They've kind of changed their category and their use case. So they've got different categories of kind of the same thing. Ultimately, it's a bottle, like it's something you drink with. But then their use case, they kind of said, look, a water bottle, a coffee and tea. They've changed it slightly. You could argue the categories and use cases here are quite similar. But again, they've done that so they can squeeze more money out. This creates reoccurring revenue. Someone may not buy a shaker, but they might buy a coffee and tea. Do you know what I mean? They got two so-called different use cases. You've got here Brownie God, right? Brownie God, really good idea. They've kept the product the same. They've just done different. This is purely category based. The use case is the same. It's a brownie, right? The category is just the type of brownie you can get. And then also the occasion as well, the variations. You can see here, there's the hoodie. Hoodie's really good. So here's the categories. Again, you're still kind of shopping for the, the same thing. Oh, sorry, not category, the use cases. The use case and categories here, you're still shopping for something warm, still a blanket, but they've got different categories of what you can buy. But here are the variations. Here are the things. Now, what they've done is they've worked with other brands. They've got other, I forgot what you call it. They've got other brand affiliation, which kind of makes people want to buy. Again, that is recurring revenue. And look, once you've got a winning product, you can squeeze it. You can make many variations of that. People may be willing to buy multiple hoodies and multiple sets, 5 for themselves, for family member, and so forth. Again, when you start understanding your ICP who really likes your stuff, you can squeeze out. Like if you know it's mainly, for example, women shoppers, you know they're more likely to buy for their husbands, their boyfriends, and so forth. Whereas guys aren't really like that. Guys tend to buy for themselves, and that's it. So again, think about your ICP always going back. Let's go back to here. Comfort, same thing. They've really changed their use case. Look, they got pets, kids, blankets, sweatpants. Again, very use case based. GoDaddy, same thing. It used to be domains, email, hosting, marketing, use case. Very, they understood that once I've got my ICP in, they're going to have these other problems we need to solve. So I think that makes really clear sense. And again, Crocs is the exact same thing. Look, with these guys, I would really argue that it's the category. Look, clogs, fuzz, same thing, same product, but they've just changed like either design or I'd say the use case, but I'd say it's more of a category thing here. The final thing I would also add is when you're scaling, right, especially on your ROAS side, because it matters so much in LTV, you're going to run into 2 kind of big problems, right? Reality, you want to decrease your time to value. When you're starting out, it doesn't really matter as much, but as you scale, you really want to get your time to value as low as possible. The second somebody buys, you kind of want them to have it straight away. If I buy a phone, ideally I want that phone within the next few hours, right? Now I put here a few examples. You essentially want the fastest fastest delivery. Now that could be shipping speed, that could mean closed pickup locations, that could be pre-built frameworks. It could be anything, but you need to think about that. If you're trying to be a big brand one day, especially if you're spending 10K a day on paid in like one country, then you need to consider that essentially. How can I decrease my time to value? Second thing is seasonality. So there's 2 types of seasonalities. Yeah, number 1 essentially is the e-commerce seasonality. So this is usually for consumer spend. When do consumers spend naturally the most? You tend to find they spend a lot in May, June, and a lot in November, December, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is your seasonality. Your ICP will buy at different points. If you're a B2B person, if you're a reseller, when are people probably going to buy? The resellers are probably going to buy around here, right? They're going to buy around here. So there are times when it's great for your type of customer to buy as well. So you need to always keep in mind, when is the ad seasonality going to be high? And when is my customer's seasonality going to be high as well? So remember I was talking to you about the spending on your ads. I think overspending ads, right? It's a key problem. I don't think people understand when I say it like that, but let me run you through it. When you're spending at such a high level, right? Your spend is spent throughout the day. Remember, it's broken into pockets. Okay, so there's only so much you can spend within an hour. So if, for example, like at 3 o'clock in the morning, there are only like how many people? Maybe 1 million people awake, but maybe at 4 o'clock there's 10 million people awake. So you're constrained by how many ads you can serve. Now, when you're spending that level of spend a day, Meta's trying to think, where can I put it? So it's at times, because you've run out of space in the main times, it will put it in inefficient places. And you'll notice it. If you go and select your time by ad account, you'll see that it spends at times even if people aren't awake. But it's so minuscule that the average is fine. But when you're spending a bigger amount, you can see here that Meta is spending crazy amounts, 2 grand, 3 grand, 17 grand, like 4 or 5 in the morning when customers aren't even here. But when you see at like 5, 6 o'clock, it drops to like, £16 a purchase, £23 a purchase, or say $20, $16, and that's $35, $109. You can see the major difference. Overall, it's averaging it out, but look how much money is being spent here. So you don't usually need to do this, but if you're a bigger account, what I would definitely do, like assess when is Meta spending the correct money. Oh, these screenshots aren't very good. But essentially, I'll quickly run you through it. We did a quick test where we basically killed the ad time. So we made a timed ads, right? So we timed it. So the ads would only go live based off certain times. There's 2 ways to do this as well. You can do lifetime budget or you can set some rules up. And when we did that, we found that when we reduced the hours, the cost per first time buyer dropped by 18%. And then in the first test, and the second one, I think it was 6%. So I think we expanded the window a little bit. There are obviously other effects that happen. If you're trying to force your spend through these hours here, your cost per click may rise, but it depends what you're trying to go for ultimately. So you've got to measure that out, but that is a problem that you may run into. The final problem is compliance, right? So when you're scaling, you're usually going to scale into other countries. Now, I'm not an expert on this, but I wanted to add it in. I've written some points here. You can again just AI this and read this, but if you're trying to scale, you will definitely run into privacy problems, tax problems, and so forth. So when you're scaling into different countries, assuming at 10K a day, you're definitely spending like in different countries, you will run into compliance, and make sure you're ahead of it, because it's a really big B word if you're not ahead of it, essentially. Look, ultimately, scaling your business is probably one of the hardest things that you can do. Like scaling in general, like the fact that you made it this far is fantastic. If you're at a point where you're spending like $10,000 a day on paid, I would say you've done quite well. The point of this video is just to show you the levers that you're gonna like, or give you the levers and let you see ahead. Because the worst thing that can happen is you don't know what's ahead. So essentially, like, business is hard at every stage. If this can help someone in some way, I'll be very, very happy. Look, if you're stuck on any problem of your business, whether that's hiring a team, whether that's scaling up your ad spend, whether it's your retention, that your customers aren't coming back, whether you're just starting out, if you're stuck on any of those problems, what I want you to do is go in the link of the bio of the channel, and then there's a question form you can fill out. If you fill that out, you'll be able to book in with me. The first 100 people can book in completely for free, and we can sit down and we can break down what's like happening, right? And where the problem and constraints are. Again, it's only available for the first 100 people. And yeah, make sure you subscribe, as I'm going to be producing a lot more content, a lot more in-depth, real life, real detailed content on scaling. A lot on focusing how to start, a lot of focusing on the key, like the really key specifics, the big things I've seen like founders fail on. All these industries I've seen, all the experience, I want to pass it over. I want to be able to give opportunities, show scalability, and so forth.